On the edge of a forgotten village, shrouded by dead trees and the lingering scent of decay, stood the old St. Agnes convent. The locals gave it a wide berth, trading hushed whispers of the screams that tore through the chapel at night. The nuns insisted it was just the wind whistling through the cracks, but the villagers knew better. Something ancient and malevolent resided within those hallowed walls, something that refused to die. Our story truly begins with the arrival of Sister Mary, a young nun whose heart was as pure as her faith was strong. She was kind, gentle, and utterly devoted. The other sisters couldn't help but admire her piety. But within months, a subtle chill began to creep into the convent's daily life. During evening prayers, candles would suddenly extinguish without a draught. Crucifixes, once hung with reverence, would be found inverted on the walls. Bad night, a low, sibilant whispering would snake through the dormitory, speaking in a tongue no one could place, a language that felt fundamentally wrong. Then came the morning Sister Mary didn't show up for Mass. It was unheard of. Sister Agnes, worried, went to her room. She found Mary sitting bolt upright on her bed, her eyes fixed on the blank wall opposite her. Her Bible lay open on the sheets, its sacred pages torn, the verses smeared with a dark reddish-brown stain that looked disturbingly like blood. Sister Agnes called her name, her voice trembling slightly. Mary turned her head, a slow, deliberate movement that made the hairs on Agnes's arms stand up. And then she smiled. But it wasn't the warm, gentle smile they all knew. This was a twisted, cruel grin, a mask of malice that seemed almost inhuman. From that day forward, the convent became a prison of terror. The Sister Mary they knew was gone, replaced by a violent, volatile creature. She would erupt into screams during prayers, her nails raking down her own face as she shrieked unspeakable blasphemies. The other nuns swore they heard different voices coming from her deep, guttural, demonic tones that couldn't possibly originate from her slight frame. Some whispered that at night her eyes would turn completely, unnervingly black. The Mother Superior, her faith shaken to its core, felt she had no choice. She sent a desperate plea to Father Benedict, a priest renowned for his experience with the darkest corners of the spiritual world, exorcisms. He arrived a week later, his weathered bag holding a rosary and vials of holy water. The moment he stepped onto the convent grounds, a profound coldness seeped into his bones, a chill that had nothing to do with the autumn air. It was a coldness of the soul. When he was finally led to Sister Mary, he froze. Her body was frail, almost skeletal, but her eyes burned with a hateful, ancient fire. As he approached, a dry, crackling laugh escaped her lips. "Father," she hissed, the voice distorted and layered, "you shouldn't have come. She's mine now." Despite the primal fear that clawed at his insides, Father Benedict began the rite of exorcism. The air in the small room grew thick and heavy, pressing down on them. The electric lights overhead began to flicker and hum erratically. As the first Latin prayers left his lips, Mary's body convulsed, a puppet pulled by unseen strings. Her voice deepened, echoing with impossible resonance. "I am not Mary," the voice growled, a sound of grinding stone and dry rot. "I am the one who was cast down, and she belongs to me." Father Benedict raised his voice, his faith a shield against the suffocating presence. He splashed holy water onto her skin. She didn't scream in pain, but in pure, unadulterated rage. The sound was so powerful, the windows of the room vibrated, one cracking from top to bottom. In the hallway, the other nuns huddled together, their prayers a trembling chorus of fear. The hours dragged on, each minute an eternity. The room reeked of sulfur, a smell straight from the pits of hell. Shadows danced and writhed on the walls, twisting into grotesque shapes, even though the few remaining candles burned with an unnaturally steady flame. At the peak of the struggle, Mary's emaciated body levitated several inches off the bed. Her limbs stretched at impossible angles, her back arching until it seemed her spine would snap. Then, just as suddenly, she fell back onto the mattress, utterly motionless. Father Benedict held his breath, a sliver of hope warring with the dread that she was gone. But then her eyes shot open, and they were no longer black, but glowing with a malevolent, fiery red. She laughed again, a horrible, grating sound that was a mockery of human expression. "You can't save her, Father," the voice croaked. "She invited me in." The priest, his face pale with sweat, demanded to know what it meant. Through a torrent of shrieks and curses, the demon gloated. It spoke of Mary's profound loneliness, of her quiet, desperate prayers for a sign, any sign that she hadn't been forgotten by God. A voice had answered her, yes, but it was not divine. It had promised her comfort in her solitude, warmth against the cold doubt, and a light in her spiritual darkness. And when she accepted its offer, she had unknowingly opened the door of her very soul to a demon. As the entity taunted him with her despair, Father Benedict gathered his remaining strength. He pressed his crucifix firmly against Mary's forehead. Smoke, thick and acrid, billowed from where the silver touched her skin. She shrieked, a sound of pure agony this time, thrashing with the force of a wild animal. "In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, I command you to leave her," he roared, his voice booming with divine authority. Instantly, the air turned ice-cold. Every candle flame was snuffed out at once, plunging the room into absolute, suffocating darkness. The only sound was breathing heavy, labored, and decidedly not human. Then a single piercing scream ripped through the silence, a sound that seemed to tear the very fabric of reality. Just as quickly, an intense heat flooded the room, followed by a blinding flash of white light that erupted from Mary's body. When the light faded, she lay still. Her face, for the first time in weeks, was calm and peaceful. Utterly spent, Father Benedict collapsed to his knees, his body trembling with exhaustion. The nuns, hearing the silence, rushed in, weeping with relief. It was over. They believed it was over. For a few days, a fragile peace settled over St. Agnes Convent. Sister Mary was quiet, weak, but seemingly herself again. She thanked Father Benedict profusely, her eyes filled with tears for saving her soul. And yet, when he looked closely, he saw something unsettling in the depths of her gaze. A flicker of darkness, a tiny ember that the exorcism hadn't quite extinguished. On the night before the priest was scheduled to leave, he was woken by a faint, beautiful singing from the chapel. It was the Ave Maria. Curious, he followed the ethereal sound. A smile touched his lips until he reached the chapel doorway. Inside, Sister Mary stood before the main altar, her back to him, facing the large crucifix. But the crucifix was hanging upside down again. As the last note of the hymn faded into silence, she turned to face him, a slow, deliberate movement. Her eyes were bottomless pools of black, and that twisted, cruel smile was back on her lips. "Father," she whispered, her voice a soft, venomous caress, "did you really think you won?" The heavy chapel doors slammed shut behind him with a deafening boom. The candles went out, and the screams that followed echoed through the village for hours. When the terrified townspeople finally gathered the courage to enter the next morning, the chapel was empty. Father Benedict and Sister Mary were gone. The only things left behind were the priest's rosary, lying discarded on the cold stone floor, and a single message, scrawled in ash upon the wall. What do you think that message said? Let me know your most terrifying theories in the comments below. And if you enjoy stories that delve into the darkness, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss our next descent into the unknown. Thanks for watching.